Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. Happy Friday. As the title would suggest, it is the last Good for Bitcoin before the inauguration. It's going to be a crazy week next week. But before we get into next week, let's get into what happened this week. My name is Brandon, social media manager at Trust Machines, also joined by Kate, who is behind the leather handle. Kate, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, guys.
And Longstreet.btc is here. Happy Friday, Longstreet.
Happy Friday, guys. Happy end of an era. I think we're going to have to change the name to, instead of Good for Bitcoin, I think it's going to have to be Great for Bitcoin.
That could very well be the case. Yeah, we will see how many promises actually begin to start being fulfilled next week. But things are definitely looking up. Price is up. People seem happy. So yeah, it's been a pretty big week. Let's see, just to kind of get into some of the public company news. MicroStrategy bought another huge amount of Bitcoin. They bought 2,530 BTC for approximately $243 million. Insane. Semler Scientific bought another 237 Bitcoin worth $23.3 million. Genius Group announced a $33 million rights offering to expand its Bitcoin treasury from 35 million to 86 million. And they also plan to explore an additional $20 million in loan financing to support this initiative. So everyone's buying up Bitcoin. And I guess we'll have to see. What do you guys think about this being a sell the news event or buy the news event with Trump coming in next week?
What would you do, Kate?
I only buy, you guys. So
Good
it's useless
answer.
asking me.
Good answer. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I disabled the sell button. I said, "Give me that feature, no sell."
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it if it was gone. I'll put it that way. But yeah, I see some familiar faces down in the audience. Hi, Annie. Hi, Rosar. Peace, love. See you down there. Some other folks. Shaylee, of course. Shaylee, feel free to jump up if you want. Want to give Shaylee a shout out. She was actually in the Block Drops podcast that went live the other day. I think it was a really good conversation. I didn't get a chance to listen to every minute, but I was kind of listening through it, and a really nice, long, in-depth conversation. I think it was like a 45 minute convo or something like that, and really cool just to hear your background. And maybe Shaylee's coming up, so she can add on a little bit about that. But yeah, good convo. Let's see. Shaylee, are you there now?
Yes, I'm
Hey.
here now. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, do you want to add on anything to your block drops appearance?
Honestly, it was fun because we just talked about kind of like the growth of the Bitcoin L2 space and how Stacks is very exciting, as well as things like OPCat. There's just a lot to look forward to in 2025. And although, people that don't work day to day in the Bitcoin space, they might just be like, Bitcoin layer twos didn't take off in 2024 the way that we had all kind of hoped that they would be. But on the other side, I just kind of talked about how the developer tooling wasn't there. Developers had to come. And so I think a lot of that, we've worked hard on that in 2024. And those tools are starting to come into place so that we can have more growth in 2025. So it's all exciting. It's just, it was a little bit slower of a build than I think people anticipated. But on the flip side, there was so much growth in BTC L1 that, we continued to push. no matter what.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite parts of the conversation, was just talking about, now is going to be the time to actually build things that retail users are going to want to use. Like the foundation set, we tweeted it out on the Trust Machines handle the other day, right? Like Nakamoto's here, SBTC's here, like it's go time, right? It's time to start building, and not just start building, start launching. So yeah, it's going to be a big year. Big year for this entire ecosystem, big year for Trust Machines, big year for some folks that are down here in the audience. Again, another shout out to Rosar. I see Andre down there. Good folks down there today. Feel free to come up, guys, if you want to talk in a little bit. We're going to go through some news, but we can maybe keep it a little lighter today since we have so many good folks down there in the audience. But yeah, let's just get into some news. We actually have quite a bit to talk about. There's been a lot of stuff going on this week. First one is BlackRock launching a Bitcoin ETF on the CBOE in Canada. So BlackRock, of course, drivers of the ETF conversation in the US last year, have launched the iShares Bitcoin ETF on the CBOE. And this will allow Canadian investors to gain more exposure to Bitcoin's price movements. But importantly, this is not the first ETF on Bitcoin. Kate, you probably know when that was. It predated the US. But, good to see BlackRock at least getting into the mix there.
Yeah, and I think I was reading somewhere that CBOE constitutes 15% of all listed securities trading in Canada. So obviously this is a huge one. Having Bitcoin exposure on there, I think just opens a lot of Canadian institutions and businesses' eyes as just legitimizing this asset even more. As for when the first Canadian ETF, I actually am not sure of the year, but I'll look that up.
I want to say it was the year before, at least, 2022, maybe even 2021. Canada was way ahead with ETFs compared to the US. Maybe somebody in the audience knows and can comment and correct us. But
let's see, there was BTC in 2021.
2021.
Yeah, 2021 in February.
Yeah, took the US a while to get here, but they finally did last year. That was good. Well, let's see. This one is not. It's a little Bitcoin adjacent, but this was pretty big news this week with Tether announcing that they are relocating to El Salvador. So Tether, of course, is the issuer of USDT, largest stablecoin by far out there, and they have announced their plan to relocate from the British Virgin Islands to El Salvador following the acquisition of a digital asset service provider license. So better kind of regulatory environment. They're moving, to continue operating. And this move kind of aims to also enhance Bitcoin adoption. Tether does hold a large amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So even though this is not a Bitcoin, maxi move that you might expect to see from El Salvador, definitely has some knock-on effects with Bitcoin. And from their blog, Tether kind of highlighted a few key things. So first one is, encouraging Bitcoin adoption. So they say El Salvador's Bitcoin first economy aligns seamlessly with Tether's mission to empower individuals and businesses through digital currency. Expanding emerging market focus. Their move to El Salvador positions it to further scale its efforts in supporting financial inclusion. Freedom to innovate. Move enhances Tether's flexibility to explore groundbreaking solutions in a supportive regulatory and business environment. And securing licensing approval, they're proud to establish a headquarters for the entire group, blah, blah, blah. But it's pretty significant. El Salvador, of course, kind of had Bitcoin as legal tender, and then they kind of walked that back last month, I believe. But their other form of legal tender is the US dollar. So it totally would make sense that they would have a stablecoin digital dollar, to also rally behind. So pretty cool stuff.
Did you see something in the news about them running nodes?
So I did. I don't know how much of news this was. I saw this trending on Twitter the other day, and Max Kaiser had said something about how Bukele had some vision or some like New Year's resolution to have a Bitcoin node in every home. And I had like a lot of questions with that. It was kind of just one of those headlines. This week I also like just generally have like a bone to pick with this like mainstream like Bitcoin media. It's just they just chase these like crazy headlines and it's just clickbait and it's like really annoying. Like I expect so much better from like Bitcoiners, right? Like we always don't trust verify, and it's just like the Bitcoin media often does not follow that whatsoever. But I was just questioning this because a Bitcoin node in every home, like on paper, maybe that sounds good, but like how would they actually implement that? Are they gonna like force people to have Bitcoin nodes in their home? Because that sounds like, even though it's Bitcoin, that's crazy. Like I wouldn't want that. Like I wouldn't want the government to force me to do anything like that, even if it is Bitcoin. Like, are they going to, subsidize the energy costs of running a node in your home? Or like, I don't know. There's so many questions, not a lot of answers from these like articles that I was seeing about it, but interesting at least.
Yeah. And it's always good to point out the double standard that, when you hear Bitcoin maxis preaching that when they just pile on a positive Bitcoin news event without actually like you mentioned, don't trust verify. Is this right? Does this gel with the Bitcoin ethos? Because if it's convenient, I mean, that's great, but you gotta double check.
Yeah. And that gets into, I'm going to skip to the next story here on this other headline that was really big this week, which was the U.S. government filed a motion basically to return the seized Bitcoin from the Bitfinex hack that had happened. But if you read the news stories on this, you would see something where it was like U.S. government orders Bitcoin to be returned, and it's like that's just not accurate at all. So here's what really happened. So the U.S. government has filed a motion to return 94,643 Bitcoin, or $9.42 billion worth of Bitcoin that stemmed from the Bitfinex hacks. And while of course, we've talked a lot about it on this show, the United States has never actually purchased Bitcoin, but they currently hold over 198,000 BTC through these different law enforcement seizures, and 48% of that comes from Bitfinex. The majority of the rest of that is from Silk Road, and then a few other kind of smaller cases. But 48% of the U.S. government's holdings, kind of quote unquote, technically, I guess, based on this potential motion, might be going back to Bitfinex. So this news kind of comes basically, it was a motion that was filed, and the two folks that were they weren't charged in actually hacking Bitfinex, but they were charged in laundering Bitfinex. Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan, who some also might know as Razzle Khan. This kind of came that while Bitfinex was not sort of like a victim in this, these two defendants basically had agreed to pay a voluntary restitution, and the ruling was that restitution should include all of these seized assets as well. So that's kind of a little recap of what's going on. So it's not official, I guess, or it is official, but it's not sort of a final ruling. It's not imminently or immediately happening, but it is something to kind of pay attention to. And in response, the other day, Senator Lummis sent an official letter to the U.S. Marshals on Thursday, questioning why they kind of plan to potentially do this so urgently. And one really interesting data point that was in the letter was they mentioned that she mentioned the BTC sold in the U.S. So the U.S. has sold some of the Bitcoin holdings that they've acquired. But if they hadn't sold it, basically it represents a 98% loss in value, which just emphasizes the need to continue holding. So pretty interesting, especially with Trump coming into office next week, saying that he's not going to be selling any Bitcoin. There's some conspiracies out there that the current administration is trying to sell quickly as much as they can to maybe sabotage Trump's plans. But yeah, interesting times, I guess.
Yeah, I was glad to see it being repaid in kind. And I was just thinking about like the Celsius days of like, okay, these people had X number of Bitcoins on the platform. So we're going to give you the US dollar value of that Bitcoin at the maximum bottom of the market, like that value. And we're going to give it to you 8 months late. So good on them for doing in kind.
Yeah, really good point. In kind is super awesome, for Bitfinex, and then potentially, I guess, the creditors that will eventually get it. I don't know.
Yeah, that was good news. I was just looking into some of the other BTC that the US sold, and there was some from Silk Road in November in 2014, and they auctioned off 50,000 Bitcoin and at approximately $961 per Bitcoin. And then March 3 too, almost 10,000 Bitcoin.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that auction was, or Tim Draper was the buyer of that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So he was early, very early conviction from Tim Draper. That's certainly paid off in many, I don't know, 10-fold or 20-fold or 100-fold, who knows. But yeah, good for him.
So I saw that Coinbase is taking a page from Trust Machines. What's going on with this?
Yeah, so Coinbase this week launched or announced a new service for U.S. users, except for New York, that is basically what they claim are Bitcoin-backed loans. Allows you to borrow USDC using your Bitcoin as collateral. And they're doing it in partnership with Morpho Labs, and that's on their base L2 on Ethereum. So, it's great that, somebody like Coinbase, what I think is the most significant thing here is that they're able to offer something like this in the US. A lot of lending, is just not available for US, citizens at all. But some have kind of, gone a little angry, I think, at the fact that they're calling them Bitcoin-backed loans, or at least saying that they're just kind of like a little misleading, since Morpho and Base are not Bitcoin layers, and CBBTC is a very decentralized version of Bitcoin. It doesn't really align so much with kind of the Bitcoin ethos of decentralization.
Very centralized.
Yeah, super centralized. And yeah, like as a US user, I am not entirely sure if I would feel comfortable like bridging my Bitcoin over to Base, to CBBTC to use something like this, right? I'd rather use something that's a little bit more aligned, better with Bitcoin, like something like Granite, which we're going to have some news about pretty soon.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. Like you said, CBBTC is Solana, right?
It is on Solana as well. I think they launched on a few different chains. So it's on Base, it's on Solana, it's on like Arbitrum, I think, is another one. So they are kind of trying to proliferate it out, across different chains, but it's not on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very hard selling point for a lot of people, to know that they have to go to a different chain, which they probably don't like in the first place, and needing to bridge. So I feel that could be a hard sell. And obviously it's going to be very exciting when Granite has some news to share.
Yeah, I would imagine that people are hesitant to move their Bitcoin to Coinbase just to get CBBTC. But I imagine that anyone who already has their Bitcoin on the platform, it's already there. They're probably just going to go that route.
Yeah, it's definitely for a certain type of user that doesn't care as much about the Bitcoin philosophy of decentralization and all those things, right? We've talked about it on the show before. Like, decentralization isn't necessarily a feature that the average person cares about. Unfortunately, we all do. We all care about it a lot. But just kind of meeting people where they are again, right? So it certainly is good for Bitcoin in some senses, but hopefully it'll just bring people closer and closer to, true DeFi on, a more decentralized type of chain in the future. But baby steps, I guess.
There
And
is also a taxable event trigger here, isn't there? If you're converting it,
That's
remain to be seen.
yeah, I think there's it's a bit of a gray area when you're bridging Bitcoin across layers. Some would say that it is, because like any kind of like, if you're giving up sort of like, I don't know, like you're not transferring it from one wallet that you own to another wallet that you own, right? You're sort of like bridging it, and it's a little more custodial, and it's not quite as self-sovereign, I guess. But others would say that like, oh, like it's still kind of like Bitcoin. It's still basically the same thing. It's just a bit of a gray area. You'll have to consult your tax professional to get a proper answer on that, I think.
regarding the risk of a single platform, I think there's going to be so many new people buying Bitcoin that they will not have been around for the Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager days, and they won't have that visceral memory of either themselves or their friends and people in their network, like losing vast amounts of money because of third-party risk.
Yeah, it seems like, every 4-year cycle, there's these, types of platforms that do crop up. Not to say that Coinbase is one of them, because Coinbase is, kind of tried and true. But yeah, people get greedy in the space, right? They chase these higher yields, and they chase kind of the riskier options. And yeah, that's just kind of what happens every 4 years. And you kind of need to, go through that. It's like an educational thing, right? In some senses, like most of us, I think, that are here, kind of were around during kind of the BlockFi Celsius days and kind of went through that. Some people, have maybe entered within the past couple of years and don't even know what those companies are, and will kind of eventually learn when some other company rugs them eventually. But it's kind of just a rite of passage almost, unfortunately, in this space.
Yeah. Well, should we play the next round of what state is going to stack Bitcoin next?
Yeah, well, we have two here. There was kind of one hot off the presses this morning, but first one was a few days ago, with Oklahoma becoming the 6th state to propose a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So I'll just read it here. They introduced a strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, proposed by Representative Cody Maynard. Bill allows for up to a 10% allocation from the state's general fund, revenue stabilization fund, and constitutional reserve fund into Bitcoin and digital assets. And HB 1203 will be eligible for consideration in the upcoming legislative session, which starts on February 3rd. And if enacted, it would become effective on November 1st of this year.
Fingers crossed. That's a good one.
We'll see.
Today, there was another state.
Yeah, and then not to be outdone, so Wyoming today just became the 7th state to propose a Bitcoin strategic reserve with their House Bill 201. And in this bill, it says that the state treasurer may use the state's general fund, permanent land fund, and mineral trust fund to purchase Bitcoin, as long as the allocation does not exceed 3% of the net worth of those funds. So they're trying to be, a little bit more reserved. The other one was 10%. This is 3%. If it exceeds 3% due to price appreciation, so like Bitcoin, has a big run up, right, and it goes above 3%, they won't have to sell, to get back down to that 3% number. But they won't be able to buy any more unless it were to dip down below 3%. So, we'll see what happens there. But it's kind of just a reserved, strategy, I guess.
That's pretty conservative. But I like, one thing I like about this one is that it has the ability to use funds from the mineral trust fund. And that's kind of in line with Bitcoin is digital gold, right? Like, I think that a lot of taxpayers may be upset if they think the state is buying Bitcoin with my tax money. But if they think about it okay, well, does it have a gold reserve? Think about this now. Bitcoin is digital gold. So if you think about it with that narrative, I like how they included that. They specified that.
Yeah, I agree. It's, it's sort of treating Bitcoin as just another commodity, right? And if you have already a fund that is investing in commodities, would make total sense to include Bitcoin in that as well. So yeah, that's a good point, Sean.
So let's see. We've got Pennsylvania, Texas, Ohio, New Hampshire, North Dakota. Yeah, and now add to that Wyoming and Oklahoma. The game theory is on.
Certainly is. It's going to be really interesting to see if any of these start to gain any traction in any states, or what the first state to actually pass a bill like this is going to be. But I wanted to give a shout out to Blockspace Media. They came out with a really good article today that sort of rates the 7 different states' bills and like how viable they might be. There's a few that we have talked about on the show, like Pennsylvania, for example, where the person that introduced the bill got voted out in the last election. So like the likelihood of their bill, actually going through now is pretty much 0. So that's pretty interesting. There's a couple of states that are kind of in that boat, but the Oklahoma bill, they gave an S tier ranking, and the New Hampshire bill as well, that I believe we've talked about, they also gave an S tier ranking. So S is higher than an A plus, I guess, in the ranking systems. But yeah, really interesting article for those. You should go check it out.
I wonder if Polymarket has this bet on what the first state will be.
That is a good question. I can check right now. Don't mind my dog barking in the background.
Yeah.
She's also very curious.
I was reading that Blockspace article this morning, looking through those, and it's interesting. The Texas proposed one where you can actually donate your Bitcoin to the state, which I don't know, it makes no sense to me why you would donate that. Maybe that's because like in Canada we pay so many taxes, so donating money to the government makes 0 sense. But I think they gave that one a C tier because of that clause.
Yeah, I'm looking on Polymarket right now, and specifically for the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, it is currently at a no at 61% on whether that will be signed in 2025. So signs are looking to no. But Kate, mentioning Polymarket just reminded me on some of the conversations that have been floating around with Trump creating a Bitcoin reserve in the first 100 days. It was really low for quite some time. It was around like 20 to 30% yes. And in the past just few days, it's gone up to, I think the peak was almost at 50%, 44% yes is what it's currently at right now. So, with Trump nearing, people are maybe hearing things, I don't know. But that'll be something to keep an eye on as well.
I have some thoughts on this.
Yes.
I strongly feel that the reserve, I know the reserve is a good signal to the market, but I happen to live in DC, and just like I literally met with some folks from Congress this morning because, the crypto inauguration ball is happening. So people are in town. And I just feel like there's so much to get done in like a 2-year time frame, potentially, of, before like the Senate might turn over, that I don't know if the reserve is the right thing to focus on. I do think it sends a big market signal on price, but there's some things that we have to work on, like protecting self-custody, stablecoin legislation. Like there's a lot of other like things that I think are much more foundational to like continuing to build in the ecosystem and maintaining decentralization. Important topics like AML and KYC impacting privacy and self-custody and stuff like that. So I just like, I have mixed feelings. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the things like ending kind of Operation Choke Point 2.0, right? So crypto companies in the US can actually have bank accounts easily, having, like you said, Shaylee, a stablecoin bill, just a little bit more regulatory clarity on how some of these things are treated in the U.S. would certainly be more useful to our industry than, number go up because U.S. bought Bitcoin. Like we need the foundation. So yeah, I agree.
And then what's the status with SAB 121?
I saw something about that this week. I feel like about I think it was like one of the authors of that bill is like stepping down or something like that. Not the bill, but the letter. Yeah, I mean that's part of like Operation Choke Point, right? Is like it's sort of just throwing that out and having that not be not be something that is kind of enforced. It's regulation through enforcement, right? Or enforcement through regulation, whatever the term is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's controversial, and I think that I think it needs to be overturned, and in the vein of acquiring and attracting companies and crypto companies back to the United States and making it easier for banks to operate crypto friendly as well.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the show, before, right? Like banks are not anti-crypto. They want to get into this industry because there's money to be made in doing custody, doing, all these different things like lending, and there's a lot of things that banks can participate in, right? It's a financial instrument, but they can't in most cases because of all this red tape, like SAB 121. So yeah, hopefully we'll see kind of that get walked back as well, with Trump coming into office. But that's just another promise we're gonna have to wait and see on. And maybe to end on as well, this is more of a rumor, but it's kind of interesting and certainly got the Stacks community excited, which is that Trump is considering creating a reserve with coins created specifically in the U.S., which Stacks would certainly be part of that through kind of their Reg A offering that happened. Stable coins would be part of that, but there was kind of some like confusion on like why it would make sense for the US to buy stablecoins when they can just own dollars because they're the US. And yeah, some other, Solana, I think, is another one, right? Maybe XRP was another one that people were getting all excited about, that was created in the US. So just a rumor. I guess we'll have to see what happens there, but people are talking about it. Well, Shaylee, maybe I can throw it back to you, with being on in DC and everything that's going on. What are you seeing that's going to be happening next week? Maybe can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are and a little bit more about what's happening with like the crypto ball and everything else that's going to be going on there?
Yes. So a lot of folks are coming into town, and I am trying to organize a dinner. So if you have any friends coming to DC who want to do dinner tomorrow night, please connect them with me. I'm hoping that Andre, who is on this call, is joining me for dinner. And yeah, apparently I heard this morning that Rick Ross is going to be a surprise guest. On for Snoop at the inauguration ball. Insane. So that's exciting. And let's see, there are a couple of there's a goodbye Gary Gensler happy hour on Wednesday from the Virginia Blockchain Association. As you know, Virginia is right next door to DC, and I'm a steward of the DC DAO, which is a builder focused community, about over 400 builders, VCs, marketing, biz dev, engineers types in the community. We try and stay non-policy focused because there's so much policy stuff. And the Virginia blockchain, Virginia actually has a lot of builders living there because of the tech sector that's grown with Amazon HQ2 and Visa, Google, a bunch of offices that are there. there's just like a growing crypto builder community there. A lot of cryptographers live in Virginia, surprisingly. Well, not surprisingly, I should say. So, yeah, so that's happening, and then there's like a privacy. There's this thing called Pretty Good Policy. It's a monthly breakfast meeting that happens, hosted by folks from Zcash, and that is happening also next week. And there are just like a bunch of dinners and happy hours happening this week with the different blockchain lobbying groups and things like that. So it's exciting. And I think people just want to know what the next 2 years are going to be like. If we can get our airdrops, if we can launch our tokens, if we can really just like set that foundation. So people are anxious to just like get started working. And I also heard, by the way, I'm sure you've read this in the news, if you haven't, that like there's a VIP section that's worth like $100,000 to get a meeting with JD Vance and David Sachs for at the ball itself tonight. So and there's like people vying for that seat to get upfront and personal with them. So that is interesting news.
Super interesting. Lots of high rollers in DC this weekend for sure.
I have to say, I don't like the pay to play type thing that comes along with the Trump administration. They did this last time. I don't love it. It's not cool. Government shouldn't be like that, IMO, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I guess I'll be a little bit fair to Trump though, and just say that that's just the nature of U.S. government. Like that's just everywhere. It's the lobbying and everything. Man, I'm jealous for the goodbye Gary Gensler happy hour though. I feel like that needs to be more than an hour.
We need a live stream of this.
I might have to FaceTime you guys from there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, I think that is all the news that we had for the week. Still seeing some familiar faces down there in the audience. If anybody wants to come up and talk about anything that happened this week, feel free. Kate or Sean, maybe I can throw it back to you. Anything that caught your eye this week that we didn't cover yet?
Well, we had a great leather lounge talking about home heating with Bitcoin mining with Nicholas Druin. He's the founder of Constellation Heating, which is a Canadian-based company. And he's really abstracting away the complications, the technical requirements for people to run a Bitcoin miner. So what he's doing is he's creating these devices where it's a Bitcoin miner, something like an ant miner, and you use that residual heat to heat something like a pool heater or a radiant heater. So we talked, it was a great conversation. We talked about a lot of the logistics behind that. So anyone who's curious about it, definitely go back and give it a listen. It doesn't make sense for everyone because it depends on your price of power, what your needs are, if it's kind of like low heat that you need. But for a lot of people, it makes a lot of sense. And then you get to stack sats and more specifically non-KYC sats too. So that was a great show this week.
Yeah, good show. I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that at the top of the show because that was a great one. I live in an old 1950s house that had radiant heating in the floors, which was super awesome. And then a couple of years ago, it sprung a leak, and we had to cap it off, unfortunately, and we got forced air. But I miss those radiant floors. I would have been a potential customer if it was a few years ago.
It's the best heating. Radiant roof radiant, and then floor radiant. So good.
He also validated my money laundering idea, which was very exciting. In general, though, he was very excited about like opportunity.
Wait, Kate, you for people need to understand the context of what you're saying right now.
All right, so last week on the Trust Machines, the den where I was pitching my money making ideas, I was sharing how I had this idea a couple of years ago where I wanted to start a laundromat that was powered by Bitcoin mining. So all of the heating would come from the miners. And the brilliant name I was going to give it would be money laundering. Anyway, I think he liked it, and it might be a go.
Very, very important context to protect us from whoever's listening, from Gary Gensler, who's maybe tuning in now.
His last hurrah will be trying to take me down for sure.
We've definitely said his name more than 3 times on the show, so he's here.
That's so funny.
Well, I think that just about does it for us. Unless, Sean, you had anything else that you wanted to add.
Oh, I think that's it. Like I said at the top of the show, I mean, this is the end of an era, the last good for Bitcoin, and maybe next week it's great for Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, this also might be the end of an era because we are experimenting with video. So this might be the last audio only version of Good for Bitcoin. We will see if things work out next week, if all of our online tools cooperate with us. But yeah, we might be joining you on video next week. We will have to see about that.
Can you wear a quantum cat mask?
I will have to wear some type of swag, of Bitcoin swag. Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'll have to plan out my outfit on next Friday.
Good problem to have.
Yeah.
The last thing I will end on, something I shared. The CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, has been rocking a leather jacket in all of his appearances, and so I think this is a good sign of what's to come.
Wow, very ominous, Kate.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Thank you, Shaylee, for coming on and sharing your insights. It's going to be a very fun week for you, I'm sure. And yeah, it's going to be a big week. Like Sean said, next week is going to be potentially great for Bitcoin. We might have to rename the show. We'll see how things go. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. And we will see you next week.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.